So yeah, this is the last of the educational program, the discourse program for EMA Expo, EMA Expo. And it's been, for this year, a hybrid event going on at the Moscow Museum of Modern Art in central Moscow in physical form with some physical events, and 4 floors of installations. And then to that, we've augmented the program with all these virtual events. So this is us in our virtual form at the end. It's been weird for me because while I've done a lot of virtual events through this year, this is the only one that I had to kind of be an organizer remotely, so that the event is physical in another place, but I've been involved only online. I've seen Gleb and other folks, but I haven't seen them since the last time I was in Moscow, most of them around December 2019. So this has been a fully virtual experience for me, but working with our team in Moscow who are physical. So a real hybrid experience. And part of the national component of that has been to work with partners, including Pro Helvetia. Normally those kind of partnerships involve being able to bring international artists in. I think it was really important for us this year that we kept those international links, like myself, going, and just found a way to make them continue to work online. So we're really grateful both to the Russian side for kind of tuning in to our virtual metaverse side of things, but also to all these artists for being willing to take it on themselves to go virtual one more time over some distances, but also kind of keep those things going, keep communication and inspiration going. It's been a big deal for those of us who have been more isolated.
Peter, did you? I'm sorry. I think I still have some connection issues. I'm not sure. Are you hearing Peter well? Is it only on my side? No.
People are having difficulty hearing me again?
Was being cutted, so it was not really very clear what we were saying, especially in the very last, several minutes. It was like,
Yeah,
it is.
Can you say something now? A little bit longer than it is.
Yeah, it's really strange because everything checks out on my side, so I don't know what it is. But Anna, I'm going to disconnect from Zoom and then reconnect. Why don't I do that and let you? Why don't you go ahead and do the introduction, and I'll leave Zoom and come back. Just make sure that you make me a co-host again, if you could hear that. Or I'll type it.
We can hear that.
No, now we hear you good, but yeah. But I don't know. I think it's the guys on MoMA side who are responsible for making you a co-host, not me.
That shouldn't make any difference, actually. I think we can. So I'm going to disconnect from Zoom and come back. But go ahead and go ahead and introduce the program, and I'll be right back, and hopefully everything will work.
Okay, great. So while Peter is disconnected and reconnecting, I will just tell you a little bit about the idea of the public program which we had this year within this EMA Expo 2021 festival and exhibition in one. And the umbrella topic is are we building the next world together, as you could probably read from the introduction of this roundtable. And actually, as you can say, it's a little bit ironical way to think about all those, positive thinking, imagination of the future world, which is being now built with all the digital technologies and all the progress in robotics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and etc., which we're witnessing now. And the idea of this question, the idea of this umbrella topic was to try to find a little bit of a critical point of view to what's going on now in the world, and are we building this next world together with the scientists, together with the technologies, together with the institutions, our artists together, facing these new challenges of the digital world which we have now. And actually most of the events which we had within this public program and education program were devoted to this kind of trying to find some answers, and every participant had a different idea of what's going on actually, and how the artists should reflect, and whether they should reflect the changes which are happening in the world right now in terms of, and I'm speaking mainly about the technological changes and the coming era of the digitalization of everything in our life. So basically, and of course, it comes to the idea whether the world is being more separated by the technologies, or are we living in the global village, and are we getting closer to each other with the technologies, or it's the opposite. So more or less the idea is like this.
Okay, so I'll try saying what I was saying again, but slower. Part of what we've been trying to do over the last few weeks is to bring together connections between different communities and different media and connections internationally. So this is a perfect way to apart from my robot speech, this is a perfect way to wrap up that program, in that we have people working in the realms of sound art and media art as we understand them, but also working really deeply with collaboration, with making connections across countries and cultures, and finding ways of taking those media art practices and proposing relevance to the larger society. Finding a reason for doing the stuff that we're doing, not just media art as something new or aesthetic or cool, but also really examining what its use can be, and doing that with other people, really involving collaboration as an essential part of that process. And so that's why I think we're really excited to get to work with not only with MoMA, but also with our partners at I'm seeing if my video is ready so that we can, just because I'm scared now to the screen share machine. In fact, there's a problem here with my connection. But actually, let me just go ahead and turn it over to Anna and let you start speaking while I work that out. But maybe you can kind of introduce yourself, and then we'll run your video presentation, if that's okay.
Yeah, so I play my video in my laptop or any one of yours.
Oh, well, your connection's working, so yeah, why don't we let you go ahead and play your video. We're revealing something behind the magic, and that now you know that this is a video, so we'll let you share that.
Okay, but I need to see how to do the screen share. Okay, hi, my name is Ben Lei. I'm from Shanghai, China, and now I live in Geneva, Switzerland for a master program. And I'm a musician, and I do sound art as well. So I prepare a video I recorded yesterday. So if I can share here now.
Hi, my name is Ben Lei. I'm from Shanghai, China. I'm a musician and also I do sound art. From 2018, I start to make my own instrument because I want to break some of constraints of consciousness. I think the consciousness for me, it comes from my classic music practice. I started to learn piano when I was 6, but to me, this finger movement is more like typing. like it, but I'm still forced to practice it every day. I think this training makes me hypercritical, but at the same time, it develops an energy that I cannot express in words. This piece is called Resonance, and it was created when I was doing an artist in residence program in Geneva 2018. I used the popular motion capture and game engine at the time to create this instrument in an artificial dimension. And this work made me start to doubt the world I have studied in the past. Resonance performed nearly 30 shows in the following years. This work made me feel for the first time that the connection between people is so important to me. At the same time, my vanity slowly began to grow up. I hope that more and more people can use the instrument I made and the rules I set to play. I start to look for equipment manufacturers, technicians, and wanted to make a standalone version of Resonance. But gradually I discovered that Resonance is not belong to me. It might just be an accessory to a device. I don't really want to admit this, but I know that arrogance will not make myself see more clearly. 2020, this year is special for everyone. My pocket was almost empty. How should I live? But I always feel that my subconsciousness is always driving me. It tells me that I need to restore a rainy night. So I found a magic place in Shanghai, 新车间, which means a new workshop, where also I found the wood abandoned in the corner. I think it has a special attraction. Like me, we are valueless in modern city like Shanghai. So I decide to use wood as the only material to create my ring instrument. I think technology has its gravitational force. No matter how repellent I was at the beginning, I finally hope that it can help and replace my hand to control. It is savage but effective. 221 days later, this ring sound walked it out of the cave. Last summer, I came to Geneva again because I wanted to escape. The place can keep me away from the protection, away from the center of my life. I began to think about how to use air as the material for my new works. So I made these sound toys that resemble swan and duck shapes. Then I start to think, if I lose stage and my audience forever, would I still have enough motivation to do what I do now? I brought them to the forest, hoping that nature can give me some answers. The forest never seems to care whether I'm beautiful or not. At the same time, I had a natural fear of wild animal in the forest. I am an animal, and I am afraid of being hurt. The chaos of forest fascinated me. The disordinary and simultaneous order is a kind of nature beauty, but this beauty is only my definition and has nothing to do with it. With these thoughts and questions, I start to use the nature I understand to create my new works. This work is not finished yet. It is made up of flutes, each with 6 flutes of the same length. Because of handmade, it can be completely consistent. I'm still trying to listen to them and want to express message. I will follow them, and I hope they will tell me at a certain point that where am I now?
Okay, that's it.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
Yeah.
what a beautiful presentation. It also seems like there's a sort of common element of wind and air in a lot of the projects that you're doing. Is that safe to say?
Yeah. It's like I want to use like the energy from the earth, like from gravity, from air, from wind. Like I want to borrow some energy from this world.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's yeah.
And there was some collaborative element to your residency as well, right? There was a sense of collaboration. I know some of this was limited because of the change of circumstances, right? But you're also kind of working with collaborations in some of your projects. There's a collaboration with nature, of course, but I mean,
Oh, you mean
collaboration with
others?
yeah.
Oh, you mean others? No, I did it by myself. Everything.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so yeah.
So it's really the feeling of the residency was then being able to kind of take that stuff out into the forest and have this like experience of the outside. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it's really important. Yeah, because I want to jump out of the human society. Because for me, it's such a mess, Because yeah, when I was in China, the information is like this, the news is like this. But when I come to Europe, come to the Western world, I think totally different. But I'm a Chinese, so it's really hard for me to see which position am I now, or what kind of thing can I do. So I don't know actually. I'm really, yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
So I wondered if these feelings of anxiety, if they followed you when you were moving out into nature or out into the snow, or whether once you did that, that it kind of disappeared?
I mean, sorry, some of the word I still cannot hear.
You had these sort of these feelings you had coming from China to Europe.
Yeah.
Did it help? Was it sort of an escape? Did you still have this sort of feelings?
Yeah, I think yes. Yeah, I think I'm not trying to escape from China or try to escape from China's society. I think I try to escape from the things I learned before because when I was 6 to 18, I have no choice to have a choice, because my parents forced me to play piano even I don't like that, but I have to do that. It for me it's like, yeah, it's really strange. Yeah, for me it's totally strange. But after 18 years old, I was like a bird. But I think my life starting from the age of 18 of mine. So because I know I can go out and I know I can do what I want, but I think it's not like the people in other place, like they can have a choice when they were like really young. But for me, I think I'm still try to figure out what will happen or what's happening now. And also another thing for me is really, yes, because I want to be better and I need to develop better, but let me just think. And sometimes I just feel another part of my humanity. And yes, I think I want to be better, and why I want to develop better because I want to fight back, because for now my feeling is I'm valueless and I'm worthless in Shanghai. But I think I'm still a kind of child, I still want to fight back because I think I am right. I'm the right person. But I think this is not very true because I think this is still about my desert. It's not about the future. So I don't know. So I'm still struggling with this kind of thinking because yeah, probably my work will tell me some story later because I trust my work because I think the relationship between me and my works, it's like we grew up together. I'm not I think I'm not a designer of my work. I'm just like follow some path or some emotion or some unconsciousness stuff and just do it. And then if they can have sound, I can understand what are they talking about. I think, yeah, that's my, yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Let's go to, we'll have more discussion at the end. But let's go next to Miranda, and whenever you're ready, Miranda, go ahead.
Cool.
Thank you.
My screen. Unfortunately, this is going to be less poetic than the last presentation. Okay, can we all see my screen? Yeah, cool. Okay, so I'm an artist and I've started calling myself an outsider engineer. And I'd like to very briefly talk about a couple of projects from the last couple of years, particularly through the lens of sound, robots, and pedagogy, and my sort of immersion within the Swiss DIY tech and bio scene and the impact that's had on me. So let's just start with year 0 being my Pro Helvetia Artisan Labs residency, which took place in 2017 in Zurich, where I was stationed at the Swiss Federal Institute for Snow, Forest, and Landscape. So I was stationed within a phytopathology or plant protection laboratory, being like the resident weird artist who's sitting in the corner of the room making a mess. And this, although before I was kind of critiquing the techno-scientific canons through my work, but this was in quite a kind of superficial or aesthetic way, I guess. So I entered the space of the science lab being quite intimidated and wondering how to actually make a very an actual meaningful collaboration with these scientists that is meaningful on both sides. Yeah, so quite intimidating. But while I was there, they're working a lot with microorganisms, and I discovered they were working with this one fungus called Armillaria, which I kind of fell in love with. And this is it also bioluminesces, and this is a kind of text piece that I made with this bioluminescent pathogenic fungi. And so it turns out that this fungus, Armillaria, actually had colonized Cape Town, which is my home city, at the same time as the human colonizers colonized Cape Town. And it was brought on an orange tree, which was planted in Cape Town. And these orange trees were used to try and stop sailors who were colonial sailors who were busy, you know, sort of looting and pillaging in the East. And continuing the colonial project there. These oranges were very important in stopping the sailors from getting scurvy. So this fungus has like an incredibly socio-political weight to it. And so I was really interested in tracking these microorganisms, not as, I mean, the scientists are obviously looking at them from a very kind of purely ecological perspective. And I'm looking at the sort of socio-political weight of these microorganisms that here, like for instance, in 1997, they only discovered, and it's also very, very 1997 for them to be only concerned about the historic oaks, which are, I would call the historic oaks colonial biotrash. They can get eaten by the fungus, I don't care. But now in the 2010s, it's coming out that the native biodiversity is incredibly threatened. And this is like a massive socio-political, cultural, ecological, and economic impact on South Africans. And so, yeah, we'll see where this pans out. And it was mostly a research-based residency, doing lots of experiments, but I did end up doing a kind of final presentation and sound installation with these Armillaria-infected logs, and also transferring this DNA of this fungus into music and getting 2 South African classically trained musicians to perform this DNA of this fungus. And I titled the piece "The Land of Milk and Honey Fungus." And this was particularly, what really struck me about spending time in Europe for the first time was the kind of, should we say, a kind of decadent wealth, which in Europe, which is pretty much only possible because of colonial projects. And so this was a big departure point for me. But I would say, other than my being in this lab, the most important thing that happened to me was kind of accidentally intersecting with the Swiss Mechatronic Art Society. One Sunday afternoon, very by chance, ended up at this hackerspace in this attic. And I just kind of never really left. So it's like inviting, like being this open hackerspace, like, oh yeah, sure, come for dinner, let's geek and stuff. And then, you know, it's like the person staying for dinner for like 4 years or something. So this was 4 years ago. And maybe this doesn't seem like such a important thing, but for me, it really was. As someone who was kind of working with geeky stuff, but from a very superficial space and not having much agency within sort of technoscience. And the kind of pedagogical approach and of certain individuals, like here is Oliver Jäcki, and the whole community, the ideas of sharing knowledge and really trying to build something together as a community really stuck with me. And wondering how I could take this kind of model back to South Africa in some way. And I also realized, though, within the space, it's not really going to work in a South African context, but also enter the infamous biohacker pioneer, Mark Dusselier. All roads lead to Mark. I think, yeah, a lot of us here know him, and who's an amazing social networker and really getting people to meet together. And through him, I was introduced to people from like Life Patch and Karkana, and more recently into like the African open science and hardware scene, which, so it's kind of funny, I had to go to Switzerland to like come back to my home continent, you know? And yeah, so this has had a really meaningful impact on me. and also realizing my own sort of textbook gender-based exclusions from science and technology, and having this kind of newfound agency within science and technology, and sort of thinking, who do I want to take with me on this journey? So also in the spirit of the SGMK, I became very into workshopology. And the first major collaboration that happened in South Africa with the Swiss Mechatronic Art Society was a collaboration with predominantly Oliver Wolkoff, the designer and engineer. And we did this project called Free Sunshine, where at that time, the National Energy Regulator of South Africa was trying to basically tax off-grid systems. And this included renewable energy systems such as solar. And this totally does not make any sense in a South African context where access to electricity is a huge issue. So we were kind of trying to do this kind of analog DDoS spam attack and do loads and loads of workshops with kids, and make these super DIY solar powered robots, and then use these as kind of protesters against this ridiculous legislation that was going to be passed. And so here is us at the International Symposium of Electronic Arts, and Helvetia also supported this project as well, thanks. And here at another school in Beleni, where we had this like massive robot race. It was great. And this school is powered by solar power. It is a very privileged in the fact that it is a rural school in South Africa that actually has access to electricity and in the form of solar power. So they basically would have had to, they would have been very deeply affected by this legislation if it had been passed. And yeah, so these tiny kind of stupid, cute robots, fun little robots that we made, they technically would have had to been registered within this legislation. And it's like totally ridiculous. So yeah. And then my current project that I'm working on now, also sort of stemming from water-related and sanitation and electricity-related issues in South Africa, is I've been making electricity out of my own urine. And I've been working with microbial fuel cells, trying to make microbial fuel cells, and like very directly from this SGMK Hacteria kind of mentality of like open access to science is sort of not enough. Actually, it's like access to materials, equipment, knowledge, safety, language, all of these things are issues. So I've been trying to make microbial fuel cells, which are, I guess, hopefully a form of regenerative electricity, where they can not only produce electricity, but they also can treat wastewater by killing dangerous pathogens, as well as being like very important in nutrient recovery. So like nitrogen that we take from the earth in the form of our food, and then usually because of this like kind of ridiculous British flush toilet system, grid system, a lot of these nutrients get lost, and you know, we have big issues with topsoil health, etc., etc. Yeah, and so I've been making these things in my bathroom, but out of like bananas and charcoal and pencils and lemons and calabash, and it's working surprisingly well. And so I actually have I'm busy showing the kind of magic recipe at TMRW Gallery in Johannesburg at the show open yesterday, where I've made this kind of cyberpunk cooking show of me making these things. And not quite ready, I think, the research to go out into like the open science and tech world, but yeah, it's pretty promising, and thinking about energy democratization. And very much like this makes me very, very aware of the fact that the sort of mainstream techno-scientific canon is deeply, deeply embedded in a capitalist, patriarchal, colonialist system. And it could have manifested so differently. Like if I could hear, this is actually me turning on LED. So I was aiming for sound, and I managed to get sound pretty good. No time to play you my piss synthesizers, I think, right now, but I actually managed to power an LED, and it's been like on for quite a few days in my bathroom biolab, busy shining. And I really wasn't expecting to get like results so good out of like, you know, clay and charcoal and pencils. And yeah, so I'm hoping to work further on this. And yeah, I think my time's up, so I'm going to stop. But this is a little sneak peek of a water project, which is coming up next. And this is some work of Oliver Yakis over here, water chemist and sound artist, musician. But yeah, I'm going to stop sharing. Cool.
Thanks so much, Miranda. I appreciate that. I think that I should theoretically now, my audio should be okay. So we can communicate normally again, hopefully.
Yeah, sounds good.
Actually, I kind of want to hear that. Is it possible to hear the synths later? Maybe not right now.
Yeah, sure.
Are they? Oh, well, because I think we would all like to make time to hear them. We can do it at the end if you want to come back, since maybe you're not set up. But thanks so much. So next up is Halik. We have we're going to kind of go. So he's coming to us from Sri Lanka. I think the internet connection might be dodgy, but we will magically have this film that should play in a moment if I turn over to Jana. So Jana, if you're there, we'll let you cue his presentation. Hopefully. Oh, okay, in a minute. So let's talk more about these pieces. Yeah, yeah. Well, so what do you plan next to do with some of the fuel cell experiments? What's the sort of next step for you?
With a kind of urban wilderness landscape, e-waste as well. I've been working a lot with for that. So yeah.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. I'm curious sort of what feedback you'll get on this. It seems like as it reaches larger audiences, that other people sort of following this stuff may pick it up or have other ideas, other places to take it, or maybe they've worked in a similar area. I don't know if you've gotten any of those kind of conversations yet.
Yeah, not too much actually yet. I guess it's been brewing and it's like super fresh. But I think it was also a direct, I mean, there are scientists like working on this stuff, but it's really like very stuck in like patent land, and like the one is the biggest one who I think are really like leading the way with the research. They just got a bunch of money from Bill Gates, who we know whose favorite country is Africa, and they just
Yeah.
got a lot of money from him to sort of develop these in Africa, you know, and this is also like, I don't know where, I don't know how, but the users are still completely lacking agency in these systems.
Yeah.
And so I'm like trying to quickly do this before try and get this out in a DIY way before like Bill Gates comes and installs some
even peeing. You won't be able to pee without paying a royalty to Bill Gates. Yeah, that'll be the next.
Yeah, and so this kind of ownership of who has power, like, you know, I mean, power kind of equals power where we're at right now, and of course like sanitation, access, like all of the facilities, all of these things, and it's just yeah, I mean, in South Africa, because of the in Cape Town, because of the very serious drought. For instance, me, who grew up in a very privileged situation with a like British style flush toilet, this became useless. Like I haven't flushed my toilet in like 2 years, you know? It's like, what is this for? What is this like stupid piece of white shiny ceramic for? What am I doing with this? Doesn't work.
Well, that's why we're glad to have you, and yeah, to kind of spread the word of this project and see who else it attracts.
Cool, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, so we'll now continue our travels around the world, virtually speaking. I think Jana is ready to show us the next presentation. And then anybody with questions, by the way, feel free to type them into chat and let us know stuff that you'd like to know whenever it comes up. You don't have to wait, but we'll come back to some discussion at the end. So those of you watching, we'd love to know what you'd like to hear or any other comments. And I think that we don't have sound, so just wait 1 second. This is I think it's a security feature, but it winds up being kind of the same usability problem, that they didn't make it obvious when you start sharing. It's too easy to share without sound. But business people, like, they show slide presentations and there's no sound. So it's just media people everything that we do always has sound in it. And I think we have a different perspective. Plus, we don't care about privacy or security. We just want the media constantly flowing.
I segued into the arts through photojournalism and linguistics, and my work has kept a strong focus on contemporary issues as well as an interest in the ideological structures that underpin them. Sri Lanka's rapid transition into modernity after the end of its 30-year civil war has been a central concern for me over this time.
Oh yeah, take a number. I was lightning before the thunder. Thunder, 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 thunder.
Colombo, Sri Lanka's de facto capital, seems to be a repository for much of the dreams and aspirations that inspire the country's aims for the future. Colombo's stated goal of becoming a world-class city like London, Dubai or Tokyo is the ultimate orgasmic goal of this dream, and it is a journey to an orgasm that is driven by the visual, pornographic in its proportions. The city saturates itself with the visuals of growth, the visuals of progress, almost in a bid to drown itself in the delusion of it, almost as if this would make it real, and maybe it does. Maybe the popular idea of economic progress is just an image, a dream, and the only way to realize it is to be figuratively asleep.
I should do that.
Rossi Braidotti writes about how the flaneur was a phenomenon that arose in colonial Europe, where these walkers in urban spaces sought to exoticize their streets and their own cultures, vying to parallel the exotic encounters of their counterparts who actually set sail to distant lands. I ask myself if my fascination with the city is a similar form of exoticization of the familiar, and if the familiar must be first exoticized to see the differences that are flattened by the blanket of what is common, everyday and prosaic. The city is a living organism. A part of what I do almost by habit is tracking the various detritus and viscera left in its wake, its expressions, moods, accidental Freudian slips as it were, as it strives to match up to the dreams imposed on it, to the meanings nailed onto it by hegemonic structures and aspirational public imagination alike, both of which stamp it with their desires. I look for the counterproducts of this process, moments of semiotic resistance that try to challenge this visual hegemony. I see my work as providing a channel for these points of visual resistance, and myself as being a medium that amplifies them. This viscera is collected and stored. Sometimes it ends up on my Instagram in a real-time process that mimics my thoughts and impressions. My Instagram stories become the outputs of my immersion. I am an obsessive photographer of anything and everything around me, and taking a picture has almost become a reflex, maybe a defensive one, maybe an anxious one, trying to cope with information overload by creating vast archives which I then have problems finding storage for. While tracking this acceleration in a bid to cope with it, deal with it as a citizen of the state which perpetrates it, I have also tried to find new ways of working, new forms of creating that can have meaning, and one of those things that has been finding community and communities of creation. 2 years ago, I met with a group of artist friends in our apartment in Colombo. We came together to hang out, cook, and spend time together, to be with each other, and to create a deconstructed art book, which we nicknamed The Packet. The group comprised of Sandev Handy, Cassie Machado, Sharika Nawamani, Dinal Kalyanage, Venuri Pereira, SP Pushpakanthan, and Imad Majid, and myself. It eventually evolved into a larger collective practice which came to be known as The Packet. Our first project, The Packet, is a deconstructed book that has been 2 years in the making. It contains the work of 8 artists coming together in conversation, privileging the intimate and the playful. In it, we focus on questions that we ask ourselves and not on questions that we ask others. Much of the work deals with highly personal thoughts and projects, and even though the pieces are created by individual artists, they are underpinned by the long conversations we had in the process of gathering. You could say the book is almost an output of the process, the tip of the entire point, which was to build a mutually nurturing community of artist friends. In instigating collaborative study, we received a grant from Pro Helvetia New Delhi to host a series of dinners around which a group of friends and artists would gather. We built an archive of zines, and these became the focal point of discussions and thoughts. The ensuing output was compiled again into a book called Mathematics, which was more interested in your workings than the final answer. We like to think of process as being as valuable as end products, and to paraphrase Morton and Harney, in collective study as that which happens outside institutional frameworks and in cacophony over music. Another publication entitled Letters Suffering from the Exhaustion Brought On by Incessant Hot Takes responded to a prompt by the Goethe Institute to artists and practitioners across the world. Instead of responding to large-scale questions about the impact of COVID-19, we chose to focus on what do we see, to converse and question, resisting the rush to theorize. What emerged was a series of letters written to each other which spoke to the immediate and visceral, and what these prompted us to think about. In between projects, the Packet continues to function as an Instagram account, collectively run by a group of people. With several people posting simultaneously, the conversations are private as well as public. Memes cohabit with excerpts from academic texts, shitposts with curated TikToks. The work we make is both part of and a result of the flow of information, to borrow from Maria Olsen, the cognitive yield of obsessive scrolling. In Talk to You Soon, Talk to You Later, for the Serendipity Arts Festival, we took this model of conversation into a space in which a predefined archive of images and text, collectively contributed, would then become algorithmically juxtaposed. Viewers would have the option of speeding up or slowing down the formations and watch meanings being created which might surprise, provoke, or baffle.
Warm summer wind, the summer wind.
පාර්ලිමේන්තුව. ඔව්. ශ්‍රී ලංකා ප්‍රජාතාන්ත්‍රික සමාජවාදී ජනරජයේ උත්තරීතර ආයතනය. සැබවින්ම එය එසේමද. කලකය උගතුන්ගෙන් බුද්ධිමතුන්ගෙන් පිරිය ගිය ස්ථානයක් විය. ඒත් ඒ උත්තරීතර ආයතනය අද මැරවරයන්ගේ රස්‍ය අධිකාරියන්ගේ ග්‍රහණයට හසු වී අවසන්ය. විනයක් නැතිව භික්ෂූන්ට පහර දෙන, පරුෂ වචන වලින් පැනවදින මෙවන් තත්ත්වයන් මැද මොහු අපේ තරුණ පරපුරට දෙන ආදර්ශය මොකක්ද?
ගේමක් දීලා ගිය අවුරුද්දේ වැලිකඩ ඉඳලා එළියට ආවේ මේ අවුරුද්දේ ඡන්දෙන් දිනලා හොරකම් කරලා.
That was a short account of some of my work, both individual and collective, which I think might be relevant to the theme of this discussion. Thank you very much to Pro Helvetia Moscow and EMA Expo for having me, and I'm really looking forward to hearing my fellow panelists and the discussion afterwards.
හැත්ත මාස 6ක් කෙරේ කට්ට කෑව හොඳට අනේ පොලිසියෙන් ගැහුවා මට තරු පෙනුනා ඔළුව වටේ
Oh, thank you so much. That was excellent. I also appreciate this song that we have at the end. Let's see if we can hear you actually in real life.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, actually good. We have a perfect connection.
Yeah.
So, and I have to admit that I didn't, sort of like navigating everybody's projects. I'm really grateful to our partners who've really done the curation work here. I just kind of encouraged everybody so that this event still happens. But I hadn't realized that the packet is actually like that it was this physical thing. So now it makes perfect sense. So did they have any of them made it here? Can you see the participants?
Yeah,
if any of the collective.
There are two of them here. There's Venery and Ephraim. Yeah, you guys there, you want to say something?
Yeah, if you want to just unmute and say hello, we're glad to have you.
Hey, hi everyone. Ephraim here.
Hi, this is Venery. I'm no longer in Colombo, so it was really, really nostalgic and lovely to see Halik's video and see Halik as well. Great to be here. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, I mean, the packet initially, we were just going to come together to make this little book. It was going to be like a 4-month project, but then we didn't quite anticipate how difficult it would be. One, because we didn't anticipate how difficult getting a publication of that size out would be, self-publishing it. But also we just kept encountering all these sort of like acts of God and other kinds of like strange things. I mean, the Easter bombings happened in April in 2019 in Sri Lanka. And then, the COVID crisis in early 2020. So we just kept kind of getting these roadblocks. So it was a long process. And so for most of the time we were working, the actual packet, the book was just this thing that never really got made. It was conceptually done, but it never really sort of like materialized. But we kept working on other projects, and that's how we sort of just kept. I mean, the name itself was just like a nickname for the book project. It was just like a working title, but it ultimately became the title for the book and also the title for the collective, which wasn't really also planned. It wasn't really a planned collective. It was a collective that just came together, which I think all of us quite appreciate. I think it's just that the sense of community it brings is very new to a lot of us working in Sri Lanka, because you tend to usually work in isolation as an artist. So I think all of us, I think I'm speaking for everyone of us when we say I think that was one of the most important things for me. What do you think, Venery, Ephraim?
I think he was asking for you to chime in, actually.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you, Halik. And I mean, in that time to have this, none of it was planned. We never planned to do it in this way, but just because there's also like this sense of community that we were all craving, we brought together, and it became much bigger and larger than we thought, and it became like a practice. Like the practice happened while in doing this collective practice of talking, making, processing. So it taking out from this isolation, it was really something that reflecting back now, even seeing the video, it's like, oh wow, like that's how it panned out. It was really nice to see that in that way.
Yeah, it's so great that this worked out for all of you spontaneously in that way, just sort of arising out of a need. Because I know that that's been a struggle for so many people, especially lately with these other events. But it sounds like it's something that you'll continue as well. It sounds like this collective might continue. And now, I mean, it sounds like it's something that you know, maybe as you're feeling nostalgic about this, that you want to try to continue it from abroad as well?
Yeah, I think it hasn't really stopped. We're still connecting. I just feel physically dislocated for sure, but definitely it's not something that has stopped. And yeah, it's taking various iterations, and Halik and them showed this second, what they had been doing with Helvetia, with the mathematics, which I wasn't around for, but that also really, it's another iteration of how this also is growing and sharing this practice with and inviting others into the process.
Oh, that's a question. So the packet might expand even in the future, not only continue.
Well, the packet has sort of expanded, and well, I don't know. I feel like there is a sense of wanting to take stock. It's been about 2.5 years now, and there's a sense of, I feel, a need to take stock of what we've done so far, finish up a few things like distributing the books, for example. It's also like whenever we said, a lot of us are also kind of like geographically scattered, but also sort of caught up with a lot of different projects. So I feel a break is not something that will take away from the vitality of the packet, but might just contribute to something stronger in the future, hopefully. Yeah, in the meanwhile, they're all very strongly on our Instagram account, and that's almost become a core part of our practice, really, the conversation we have on Instagram. Yeah, like whenever we said, I feel like one of the most interesting things that popped up is it's an entire, I think, a process in itself, what we discovered in terms of coming together and conversing, and the conversation itself became a process for making together. You know, yeah, so hopefully, yeah, it will continue to flourish.
That's great. Well, stay with us if you can, packeteers. I want to get through the other talks, but then we have some time at the end for discussion. And so again, to our audience, anybody with questions or comments, feel free to type them into chats or wait until the end and do the virtual hand raising thing, and we'll make sure that you can also be part of this discussion. But thanks so much to all of you. So next, I'd like to turn over to Anna, come a little bit closer to home. But for those of you who are maybe not familiar with the institutional context here, Pro Helvetia is facilitating collaborations between Russia and the international artistic community. So it's another of these linkages that we're so fortunate to be a part of, and that is woven together with what's happening with EMA Expo. And so we come a little closer to home, and Anna, who's both part of the organizing part of this team, but here is wearing a different hat to talk to us about your experience as an artist. So hi, Anna.
Hi, Peter, and hi, everyone, once again. And thank you so much for inviting me here. And it was really a pleasure to hear the talks of you guys. And when you were talking about your experiences and your work, was really very, very interesting. And it's cool that everyone has such a diverse approach to what they're doing. And it's so cool to see that you really managed to develop some collective and group practices within your residency. I spent my 3 months residency in 2000. I'm not as prepared as you. I don't have a great video recorded for you. Unfortunately, I really enjoyed it, guys. It was really brilliant. So it's quite a quick, but do you see my full screen or not full screen?
But yeah, it's full screen. It looks
full
perfect.
Screen. Super.
Yeah. I'm watching in 2 places, but it looks good. Go for it.
Great. So yeah, my experience with Pro Helvetia residency was in Basel, and the place where I spent 3 months was called Atelier Mondial. And for me, it was quite crucial that it was just next door to House of Electronic Arts, Basel. And House of Electronic Arts in Basel, it's quite an important institution which works with media art and technological art, and within the international context, they play quite an important role. And for me, it was really inspiring to be there next door to this institution, because my area of interest is specifically media art. And in truth, these are the people with whom I was taking the residency by that time, some of them, and you cannot really see it clearly here, but people who were by that time in the residency, they were from really different parts of the world, from Mexico, Australia, Taiwan, Korea, Shanghai, and etc. So it was quite an inspiring situation to find myself among these artists from around the world. But the thing was that mainly artists who were spending the residency there, they were either painters or sculptors or photographers. So it was not really, I mean, we tried to make some collaborative projects, but in truth, I rather was looking for some other ways to involve them. So basically within the residence, I have developed two projects, which I have showed within one group exhibition and one solo exhibition. And here you can see a project which is called 180+1. And I'm gonna go to the, I'm gonna switch from the presentation to the website, because it's easier to show some outcomes of this work on the website. So actually the idea of the project is quite straightforward. 180 is the amount of the currencies which are officially recognized by legal tender for the moment in the world. And the physical embodiment of a currency is a banknote, as you know, and you know that all the banknotes are neatly decorated. They're really like the masterpieces of the decorative art, if you think about it. But all these money, all these banknotes, they're actually a bold statement of propaganda, if you think about it. They symbolize the world divided by borders, nationalism, constraints for the people's freedom and truth, because these are the symbols of different countries. And a quick research showed that the visual representations of all the currencies are surprisingly very similar one to another, and all countries are utilizing the same visual codes, color schemes, or aesthetics. And of course, if you think about it, the classical banknotes, the classical currencies are part of the propagandistic machine each country creates, and the most common propaganda symbols on the banknotes are faces of queens, presidents, kings, or national heroes, official buildings, and other national related items. So what I did, I collected the visual representation of every 180 notes which are currently circulating officially in the world. And I kind of morphed one face, one representation of one country to another, so that it's like an endless meditative morphing of one currency to another. And I made a kind of decorative carpet with a projection on it, emphasizing that it's really a super decorative thing, which is really symbolizing propaganda things, and that +1, that opposing currency, which I was showing together with these 180 visual representations of the currencies, it's Bitcoin, of course, or other cryptocurrency, which is completely decentralized and have zero symbols of national, symbols or propagandistic stuff. So it was quite, again, it was a kind of a reflection which world we are living now, and this is the representations of the old world represented by the faces, and it's quite interesting actually. If you think about it, they all really look the same way, so the aesthetic is all the same. So that was one of the projects which I was which I presented and developed within the one moment, within the residency in Basel. And then the other one, the project is called Imperfect Simulations. And this is the project in which I, in a way, involved the people who were in the residency by that time and whom I met in Basel and in Switzerland, and some other people from basically around the world. And this project is currently on view at EMA Expo Superfluidity exhibition in MoMA. But initially it was created in Basel, and it's kind of a work in progress project. And it's a project which is based on two main ideas. So the one idea is about time, and this is and this is a kind of a reflection of how the temporality and our feeling of the time has changed within this new time, within this new era of digitalization, of social networks, of all the things which are surrounding now us in this new world of the technology. And what I did is I have talked with people from all around the world, trying to understand whether the cultural and historical background make them think about time differently. And I have collected their thoughts both in the form of the charts and in the form of the audio interviews. So I have interviewed more than 40 artists, thinkers, and scientists with different cultural backgrounds from different countries in order to create this audiovisual meta-narrative on the time perception and relativeness to this to the term of the time. And the second topic interweaved with this imagination of the time and the changes of the time in our era was actually the dreaming and the time we spend dreaming. If you think about it, within the approximate 23 years of sleeping, because if you calculate time, an average time we spend in this life, and calculate the time which we spend sleeping, it's 23 years on average, and 8 of them we spend dreaming. So I interviewed the topic of the time perception together with the theories about what we actually see in the dreams and what is it. So the second part of the artwork is based on the threat simulation theory developed by neuroscientist Anna Titovets, who said that actually what we see in our dreams is a kind of simulation of the threatening events, and this is a special mechanism which was developed by our brain to train us, to prepare us for these threatening situations in the real world. And basically here at the screen you can see the research which I've made, and if you think about it, if you it's a little bit not very clear, but the threats, most of the dreams which we see, they have certain threatening events, and there is a known topic, a known list of the topics which we normally see: escapes, accidents, failures, catastrophes, disease, fault, and etc. So what I thought is that how are these is it playing? Yeah. How are these topics, how can they be reflected in the nowadays? What are the topics of today which can be the threats for us, and which we can see in our dreams? So basically, it's a kind of speculative work where I'm presenting some visions of what it can be the threats of today's. also ask people to ask people whom I interviewed to tell me the dreams which they will see. And actually, this is a kind of a meta narrative which I create together with different pieces on time and these threads of the digital age, which we can see which we can witness while we are sleeping. And I mean, it's a little bit complex artwork, which really demands that a person will spend a certain time in this. Like, for example, one moment. Like, for example, I was utilizing quite a lot of found footage. And like, for example, here you can see these are the beats of the games which people are playing. And these are the exact moments when the hero, when the player is being killed in the game. So it's a kind of a reflection on what could it be as a threat topic in the dreams. So, and what I found out also is that nevertheless, people whom I interviewed were all having different backgrounds and coming from different countries and etc. More or less, the topics were more or less the same, and these are like the visualizations of the possible topics, the topics of the dreams, and also the perception of the time really changed within the digital age, and they all were saying quite interesting, views of how they feel the time in the age of the internet and informational overdose and etc. So basically, this is it. Oops.
Now it's the time for that slide. It wasn't the time for the "it's not your time" slide, but then it was. Thanks so much, Anna. We appreciate it. I also have to, in full disclosure, if you miss the beautiful background behind me, I got rid of it because it was the work of Lucas Gutierrez, who's also one of our exhibiting artists. It looked very nice behind me, but it's not really the subject of this talk. It was from our last talk. Those of you who saw it have seen it already. But yeah, it's nice to, it's great to see Anna's work in the context of this exhibition. And I see lots of themes even in that work that connects to our other speakers here. So all of the rest of you, of course, we're sorry that that we couldn't bring you to Moscow for this project, but conceptually, virtually, the connections are all there. So that's what's really nice to have you all with us today. So thanks so much, Anna. I'm going to try to come back to some of that stuff in discussion. I think let's hear from Sybil already, if you're ready for us.
Yes, I am. I am just trying to. Sorry, whilst this was happening, I just had like a mini tech panic here with my phone. Like my audio just decided to go a bit funny.
Okay.
So
but take your time.
Yeah.
We have some time.
Oh, I'm
glad. In a way, we've kind of created like a net media piece with these talks because everybody's in such kind of like different presentations and lots of different ideas that I'm really quite enjoying it. I hope that other people are enjoying it too, but I'm really quite enjoying like this rapid fire stream of ideas. It's actually really inspiring.
It is really nice.
Even if it's really stressful for those of us with the technical problems, the outcome is quite appealing.
Yeah. Right, here we are. Maybe I can even hack it even more. And in a way, this is already a little bit of how my practice works, let's just say. So today I'm going to focus on what I've been doing with social media. Because I think it's more relevant to what we're talking about here in terms of like how can we build a world together. I just need to figure out what's echoing here. Who's echoing? I don't know who's echoing. And for this, I find that working within social media platforms is useful if we are to affect the fabric of society and our subconscious and in these times. And I find that the time is really ripe for this. When I started the work that I do on my Instagram, I don't know why the sound is just keep on coming off the wrong place. Hang on a second. I don't understand. I'm hearing an echo. Okay, here you go. Sorry. Here we are. So especially right now, because everything is so turbulent, we've been kind of thrown off the ground. I find that it's a really helpful material to use, social media, because it's where we can connect with each other. And although we're pretty much inhabiting a country that belongs to it becomes like a country. You know, Facebook is like a country, Zoom is like a country, and it has the laws according to the belief system of the people that run those companies, and also the market that they want to affect. But nevertheless, we are there, and I think that there are ways that we can embed ourselves in these structures. So in 2017, I turned my Instagram account, which was called Sibeli Sibeli, into Avatar Perform, in the awareness of seeing the body as an avatar interface, and really wanting to bring that notion of, like, say, in one hand, I think denaturalizing is not the best word, but let's say just deessentializing how we see ourselves in our bodies, because I find that a lot of the problems that we're having in society now that impact all the way to how we use artificial intelligence and the consequences that this generates in terms of biases and reproduction and reproduction of systemic oppression and interpersonal oppression, as well as redistribution of violence and all of these things, they end up, you know, in the bias of the artificial intelligence, because we are the ones that are providing the data set, be it that we are coding it or be it that our data is being mined. Nevertheless, how we behave is how it's going to affect what's coming in terms of, like, with automation and so on and so forth. And so I decided to then make this, turn my Instagram account into this effort of non-performance, of anti-performance, that of course plays with performativity, but it's not hung on performativity. And the performativity I'm talking about here is like the playfulness, and, you know, my work occurs very much on the intersection of site, occasion, and purpose. So if it is purposeful to engage in performativity to achieve a level of deep deprogramming of our subconscious from the malware, societal malware that we have around, which in short, white supremacist, cis heteronormative, patriarchal, femphobic psyche, let's use what we can and whatever strategies that are possible. So I started with a lot of oversharing on the, like, basically what people do on actually this is a bit more evolved there, but what people do on TikTok nowadays, sort of just like talking, and at 3 a.m. with a cold sore in my mouth, just like really trying to avoid this performance of a lifestyle or of anything. When one would see anybody else in my stories with me, somebody that's also speaking, they were sharing a conversation, but there wouldn't be ever sort of, anything that could be seen as a type of ostentation of placement in space-time other than the psychic space-time of a collective subconscious expressed by the individuality of whatever my subconscious was picking up at that moment. So first I started talking, like focusing on non-binary feminism and talking about gender as like that being the first site of, not the first site anyways, but like really just the impact of gendering is so huge that I find that the femphobic gendering is pretty much at the core of upholding a lot of the structural problems that we have now, because it prevents us, for example, from connecting to each other, from grounding with each other, from nurturing each other. Also, if we can't ground and nurture and heal, our amygdala in our brain is just completely aroused all the time. And what does that do is that we become really susceptible to reproducing these say, these malwares, these programs that have been in our subconscious, right? So I really started working on gender first and thinking of non-binary feminism. Maybe I even have, yeah, there are some videos here. I'm not sure these have a lot of text underneath, but here they are. I don't know if you get any sound from this. But here I was talking about climate change versus gender equality and how that's implicated. And one thing that's important about this project for me, let me get the camera open again. So, yeah, so it's critical thinking, life critical thinking. So the reason for avoiding avoiding performing according to what would be necessary to survive in social media or in society or to brand yourself or whatever, and being in this raw state of observing self in society and triggered by the socio-political issues and emotional issues that come with it, engage in critical thinking, and also using language that's not full of jargon. So whatever I would go to conferences and lectures and learn and study and talk with people in a lot of jargon, just really simplify language. Because also I find that if we don't work on this, whatever research that we are doing, when it's just going to stay at an elitist level, and we're not going to get the change that we need to get if we want to really change the situation for the world that we live in. So for that, social media also becomes really important. So the first phase was a lot of talking, so going through non-binary feminism, working to eradicate femphobia, talking, making it sure that people can understand the body as an avatar interface, that the subjectivity is not given by the body, rather by how this body is seen in society. So of course, not taking out here the issue of racism, for example, but making it even more really highlighting it, how senseless it is, to look at somebody by their body form that they come into the world, or like the genitals that they carry, and assume that a person would be this or that, and then act violently and oppress and exclude, and say somebody is trans, like I am non-binary, so on and so forth. So this was happening a lot. And all of this content, like a lot of it is just in here. Like I said, there's you can see as I'm scrolling, as I am scrolling here, there's different subject matter. There's even explaining about the words on about. And then I started looking at more tools that social media could afford me. And what I thought it was really amazing is that now we can do in performance work, instead of just it's not working. It's not reading my eyebrows. In performance work, we can have people no longer be just a passive viewer, but really be an experiencer and an activator and a perpetrator and the continuation of the work. So for example, I made this piece with augmented reality. It was one of the first filters I did. It's very simple, but basically it allows people to just display their pronouns. And what this does in turn is, as the experiencers would use these pieces and disseminate it online, it helps to obliterate, for example, question of aesthetics that weigh heavy for cis and trans people. The idea of what a woman is or should look like, or what a man, cis or trans, should be or look like. And now we're even having, people trying to create a third aesthetic definite for non-binary people, which most of us, or many of us, are dissidents of gender. We have no interest in it. So these were more active tools. And then I saved, for example, let me find them. Ooh, this is more to the back here. And as I was being tagged, and people are using these face filters in this case, it created a map that then sort of colors this idea of, you know, aesthetic to do with gender, and also obliterated at the same time because it's ever shifting. I don't know if it's gonna load here because it's quite old, but this was just the they them filters. This one wasn't a choice of pronouns, it was just for non-binary representation itself. So I'm gonna go skipping very fast, and you'll see all kinds of faces and shapes and presentations. And this lives on this Instagram piece. And I like to say that, like, since my Instagram was called Avatar Perform, it's no longer mine. It's not my personal, it's just that the work that I do is very personal and is very naked and playful while it's political. But it's not like I don't consider it like my, you know, oh, that's my Instagram. It's a piece. And for me, it's important to make that very clear. Because this is a place where this like nesting dolls of my practice happens a lot. And then further on augmented reality more recently, because especially because of last year with the pandemic and civil rights movement, with all the labor that we've done in ourselves and collectively, and the collective trauma, I found that it was time to work with healing a bit and to gather energy in one hand. So I started working more with sound. I don't know if this can be heard, but if you go to my Instagram, these, we can play them live. Hang on. So this is a synth sculpture. So each one holds a tone. And so in this way, also engage with trying to bring back playfulness through boredom, which opens space for grounding and healing, you know, all of that was saying that was lacking, that goes in this box of the feminine, let's say, whilst using the device from social media, you know, that was sort of design devised to suck all our attention and turn that into money. And suddenly we're using it to play sounds, or to, like, for example, I love this one. It's like inspired when I was a kid going to restaurants and breaking toothpicks and making helicopters. Actually, you'd be like, but I made it with open mouth instead of kissy face, because some face gestures are a bit more complicated. And then the sound pieces got a bit more intense for the healing. Oh no, now did my computer just die? I hate this. I hate my computers, all of them. No, it had full battery. I think it was just got super overheated. No, it's coming back. It's coming back.
Okay.
It's gonna come back to life.
We didn't kill your computer
It's
in
just
the talk.
being,
That's
it's
good.
just being funny. But meanwhile, I can talk here. And so yeah, I started making more of these pieces because I come from music. Before I was fully like in fine art, I was releasing albums, touring worldwide, doing live sampling, and like that was my life. And if somebody told me then that I was gonna sort of abort mission for quite a long time, I wouldn't have believed them. But I went through a moment where I had to throw everything, the baby out with the bathwater, to refocus myself, also because it was the time when I was transitioning, like something wasn't sitting right with gender and how I was feeling. And I was literally on stage and with a camera on my face, and I'm 14 years old. So I had to like go. But through augmented reality and through virtual reality, then now sound is coming back because it's so incredibly powerful. It's like the most powerful installation we can have. You can close your eyes, and if you're doing sound design really well, you can make a rubber object be behind you. You can place like literal objects around somebody. And I love this, how this relates also to quantum mechanics, you know, because in theory, actually, everything is here and it's not, you know. There's incredible amount of space between the atoms and nothing ever touches anyways. It's all just the signals being translated. So share sound.
Well, we should also encourage, while you're doing that, we should also encourage everybody to go check out your Instagram account, because then they can also try it themselves. And let me paste that. I'll paste that address into chat in case you don't have it already. It was also on the Facebook group if you were there, but I'll paste it here to chat too.
Thank you. So this is a piece. Here is just the video version of a piece I did for Berlin.ar that was curated by Annika Meyer and Prize Nobiety, and thinking against sound and working with sound fractals for tone. And I hope we get the sound. Let's see. So this forever ascending sound with a drop that never comes. Are you getting the sound? I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, we can hear it.
Yeah. For some reason I don't. There's a bit of an infinite loop of like. So and also I like to work with now a bit on the more art side, technical side. I like to work with ready-mades, and I consider everything a material. So software is a material because it has its restrictions and its possibilities, but also so finding 3D models, modifying them, or using very simple mobile phone apps, and then processing them in the phone itself, and then turning this into a piece that then lands onto the Instagram accounts with a big text piece with it. So it's always kind of revolving like this. So in this case, like these bodies, they were like sketchpad bodies that then I modified to be more ambiguous in gender and purposely without skin or fat to the body, so that it could be like as close to the root of the human as possible, and you know, out of any sort of impact of what those layers can bring. And just to represent just more like our subjectivity and the bones, like in space, really tired of the situation of suspension. And I placed it in actually that's a planta vault where I go when I'm losing my mind.
That is exactly how my stomach looks now, actually post-pandemic. The abs and everything.
Right?
So,
yeah. No, this is like, you know, it's metaphorical about like the abs, but you know, it would be maybe looser, but still, this is just the body, just the muscle layer. Let me get out of this Vimeo. Let me see.
Well, so hopefully people got the links. We're actually running a little low on time, and I want to get to a little bit of discussion.
Okay. Yeah. So I can just I was just gonna show something I can show on my behind me as we talk. So virtual background. So in terms of like building, there's just like, this is a piece that's now going to the AI Biennale in Düsseldorf. It's the same body of work where in here I'm not using sound fractals. I'm using just a feedback from a tone, and then I took it into Outspace VR because that's where I've been testing a lot of stuff, and I've been putting a lot of work there again to use social media space because there's already a population there, and the population that exists can come and experience these pieces. It's also a good playing field, and I made this piece called "Are You the Media Player Owner?", which is a world where anybody, I give permission to basically anybody that comes from the population to build and destroy. So as an exercise to see like how we behave. So it's very much a process piece. And especially considering, are you the media player owner, but like who's the owner of where you are, and how far can we push, and how can we manipulate the situations to shape the world that we want to be, and how are we dealing with each other. And it's really interesting because in the beginning, I don't know if I have an image here from how it was. Not right now. This is already really affected. In the beginning, it was like a green floor. There was loads of like, are you the media player owner everywhere? It was like broken media players. And now I think the population really found it. And every now and again, when I come back in, it's completely changed. Now somebody made an island to the top. And these white bits here, you see now the population of this platform starting to show up and drop links to their own apps, to what they're hacking, so to affect the space. And so that's what I've been experimenting with.
Yeah, it looks amazing. Thanks so much. That from our side, everything looked incredible. So really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Well, thanks. I'd like to kind of fit in some other questions. There's already one question from Anastasia Mararenko, who's writing us from Russia, and says, you can read the comments, but thanks for everybody's presentations. And this is something I'm curious about as well. So Banlei said that one of the reasons he went to Switzerland was to be somewhere other than only just China. So this question of what you're looking for when you decide to go outside, whether it's for a resident, as I understand it, whether it's for a kind of a residency or for collaboration, what drives you into that international arena? I should not know what the end of this means. It's important to hear answers from the first hands. I don't know what that means, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of reason because, yeah, first of all, because I live in Shanghai and we still have like really traditional like culture stuff, because a lot of my parents also asked me about should I get married or not? Yeah, this is the one of the reasons. So I think it's, yeah, so I want to escape from this because I don't want to get married yet. And I think, I don't know, because why I don't want to go to next step of my life, because I'm still, I don't think, I cannot find myself in Shanghai actually, because everything is like crazy. I cannot be alone, like, so yes, the most important reason is like I want to find myself, like I can jump out so I can see myself clearly. That's the one of the reason. And why Switzerland? Because like 2 years ago I came here for the residence program, and during that time, I think I was the person I want to be, but 3 months is too short. And for me, it was a dreamy experience, but sometimes I just want to, probably it's not reality, you know, I want to just spend more time in there and just, you know, it's not like heaven. It's just like, so I want to see the reality in here. It's not only in my imagination. I just want to really go inside of Switzerland. Probably people steal from supermarket, or probably, yeah, a lot of things that's really interesting. So also I think like the Chinese education is probably like they need to be people be good, you know. It's like they forced you to be a good person. But I think in Western or in Switzerland, I think I just feel like I can be a bad person, but I need to good educated a bad person. I don't know how to say that, but yes, that's what I feel like the difference between, yeah. Okay, and others,
does anybody else want to answer that too? Does that resonate for you? Not going to Switzerland, the dream of going to Switzerland and being evil, or the dream of going to Switzerland, or the dream of going to Switzerland. How does that resonate for other people? This kind of there or anywhere else, or Russia, or any of these other places you've done collaborations outside where you normally live?
I want to say something because I was at Atelier Mondial, like Anna, in Basel, and it was so amazing for me actually to be in Basel. I don't know what it was exactly. I'm still trying to understand like how much of it was Switzerland and just like how organized and clean things feel, that suddenly your mind, you know, like it's super also, it can be seen as stifling, and of course it's exclusionary in so many ways, how they get it that clean or something. But to a subconscious level, just the architecture of the space, or just like what you gaze with surfaces, the fact that you stare at a river, and like sort of these things, it really did something for me. And I felt really like while I was there, because also because COVID, you know, I went in October, and like here in Berlin, they were starting to lock everything down. And I saw that in Switzerland, they were like, meh. You know, I started locking myself down regardless and going to a solo journey with the self. And so it relates to what Banley was talking about in terms of like finding yourself. I felt like I was going through some kind of like avatar upgrade in interface, and also the user that operates this avatar going through an upgrade, but through a process of like having a really interesting interaction with how we navigate our perception of reality. Because every time I hear Banley talk about reality, I think about reality is what it is in as much as how we perceive it as well internally. And I remember having these moments of spending hours and hours and days on silence and observing like the wall, or something, or going to like see the duck at Mariengarten, and just how it could feel like navigating different layers of reality. And I'm not saying this is because of Switzerland, but I think there's something to do with displacement, with architecture, with, I live in Neukölln, on Telstraße, like near Sonnenallee. So it's very dirty, it's very noisy, it's full of cars, it's full of stuff. And then suddenly you go to this like very empty, and then Switzerland locked up. Like, they're not Switzerland, I mean, the canton, like Basel. So yeah, I just wanted to share this experience of Atelier Mondial. And it was amazing for me, honestly, like this experience of being able to have that amount of silence and that amount of external organization, just like white surfaces. People say, oh my God, it can be so clinical, but for me, it was so perfect to be able to dive deeper internally and locate these layers of perception and be able to sift through the 27 million tabs, that we keep in our minds open nowadays, especially.
Well, I could certainly see with all of you all participants that something was happening there in the work that came out of your residencies. So that was really exciting. And I should also say that I can't take any credit for this at all. So normally as a curator, you talk about, I don't know, you kind of build yourself up and what you pull together. I can say, fortunately, I had like nothing to do with this. That Pro Helvetia sent you all, and I said, wow, this is fantastic. It's like a dream of this like gift of here are all people, all artists whose work I like completely love and want to put together. And so I had a really easy job. But sometimes we have these experiences, not just about Switzerland, but Moscow. Anna, you had something you wanted to add.
I just wanted to add that, first of all, it's amazing that we've been to the same residency. I think it's very cool. And this is interesting that I had quite similar feelings while being there, that it's really not on. That's why I said that, I wasn't really looking for a group, product to do there, but it's really true that I was enjoying the silence too, and being alone for quite a long period of time. Also because I think Atelier Mondial is situated a little bit outside of the old city. And but this what I think is very interesting about the residencies themselves, that it's not only about meeting people, it's also about the journey inside yourself, inside your thoughts. It's the opportunity to switch from the normal way of thinking, from your routine, from your projects which you have been stuck with in the same circumstances. And this is so precious, in my opinion. Like with my experience, it was like 2018 was a disaster. I was really piled up with a lot of jobs and projects and work, and I was completely like dying. And then this switch to completely another environment, to new people, to new visions, and to silence also was perfect. It was really perfect. So it's not, in my opinion, the residencies, it's not only about actively looking for new connections and creating group projects and collective experiences, but also it's the very, very subjective journey in a way.
Well, actually, I guess Anastasia asked this as, what are you looking for? What are you going out to look for in international collaborations? But if I'm getting this right, what I'm hearing from a lot of you is it's not so much what you went looking for. It's some of the stuff seemed to kind of come find you, right? Or that there was something serendipitous that happened.
It's both.
I mean,
I think it's both.
I mean, it's like we may set off to do a particular thing at a residency, but like usually, first of all, like the time frame between when you get it to when you go, who are you then? depending, like if you have a practice that's very dynamic in your research or multi-layered, like what even are you on when you get there? So like maybe you think you're going for one thing and then you get there and you get surprised completely. And I think this may even happen, even if you're not like this, maybe if you have a very steady, there is like one particular goal in your research or what material you're working with or something, but you get somewhere. I think this displacement, it always does something. And I think it depends on people's attitudes. Like, for example, I like the idea of going to a residency to meet a lot of people. But I feel that how long a residency goes for also plays a part. I think if like going to a 3-week residency is different than going for a 3-month residency, then going to a 6-month residency. They afford us levels of anxiety and relax that are different, you know, and desires that are different. And I think because like, for example, I went for 3 months, but just short of 3 months. And I was really like, Anna, like really into the silence. Like I got there and I was like, I was needing to be quiet as well. Just like to process deep emotions and stuff. But it's I don't know if I would like to hear from the other artists as well, like the levels of tortuous that one can get in a residency. Because for example, I'm always kind of found like, okay, I want to go work with this, but then there is the being, you know, and then you get to the relationship to the residency, and then there is the being of yourself, and then what that wills, you know, and what's catching your eye, like you're a magpie, like what's calling your attention, and or the motivation that is up or down, and like how, you know, how does each person deal with going to residency? Because sometimes like, oh yeah, you have to give the show at the end, or you have to, you know. I think I was lucky, you know, I went for 3 months and wasn't like I had to give a show at the end. But of course, you're gonna talk about what you did, and you're not going on a vacation, you know, going on a residency. You're doing your research, and I think especially for me, because I work with art life a lot, it's very confusing. Because yes, I'm living an unobserving life and taking notes and making a piece, that's working, but it could also be seen as I'm just bumming around, you know.
Well, so
and going
actually,
in VR, throwing parties in VR, making a club, which is what I did while I was there. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I really was Halik, I guess if you're still around, I was really struck by talking about meals. This seems so important to me. Also, I can say hi in chat to folks like Betty Apple and Marcus Balundis, and I see some other familiar names who we know from other parts of the world and residencies. But wow, I think this meal, this sort of like things like meals seem really important. This kind of some of the stuff that we don't really talk about, certainly in institutional organizing, that like maybe part of what we do is just kind of come together and share a meal together. And maybe that it's not only where a lot of stuff happens, but maybe it's the whole point. I don't know. Are you still over there actually?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah, I mean, I think the whole meal thing is just so true. I feel like what we did with the last project that we did last year with Helvetia New Delhi simply just that we want to host a series of dinners, you know, like open it up for a group of people to come over to our house. I live with 3 other artists, and you know, we just wanted to have a space in this house where people could come, bring groceries, whatever they wanted to cook, and we could all just like plan a meal together. And that really was the core of the project. And everything else was sort of like built on top of it. The idea of discussing zines maybe, and also maybe coming up with a publication was sort of like added on. But the core of it was really simply to have this like space and a space that, yeah, we were quite inspired by Morton and Hani's idea of study, you know, and study as something that happens when the professor leaves the classroom as such. You know, what happens in those idle conversations you might have, jokes and the quips, and sort of like ascribing some value to that process and that sort of space. And that's really sort of like where he came from. And I think really what inspired us was sort of like living together. So me and Sandev and Venuri shared an apartment in Colombo, and that was sort of like our first experience of living together with other artists and then experiencing the kind of conversations we would have when we were just meeting each other in the living room or whatnot, and then feeling the energy of that space is what kind of like really sort of like pushed us, I think, in a way to start the packet and then sort of like think more seriously about simply creating that space, and I think that really, in most cases, that's really all that matters. I also like to add something to what you guys are talking about residencies. And I feel like maybe the first time you go on a residency is a bit of a mystifying thing, right? Because you don't really know what is it, what are you supposed to do, how are you supposed to be, and I kind of relate to a lot of what you were saying, Sibyl, about the avatar upgrade. And for me, it's more of being a stranger in a strange place and really sort of like enjoying that sense of alienation, because Colombo and Sri Lanka really is a very small place, and Colombo can almost be like a village because everyone knows everyone else. And whenever I'm working, I feel so close to my material, like culturally and contextually. It's really refreshing to go to a place in which I am very distant from the material I have to work with. I don't have an ingrained sense of cultural understanding of what's going on, and it really sort of like tests my process and makes me question who I am as an artist, because I'm forced to sort of like use my methodology and my ways of thinking in an entirely new space. But also I feel like being able to just walk around and necessarily not feel like I'm noticed or not feel like I'm seen in the same way is also quite refreshing. And I remember when I went on a residency, it was to the Verzaska Valley in 2019, and it was right after the Easter bombings happened in Sri Lanka, and it was like a very traumatic time for all of us. And it was this beautiful little cottage in this lovely sort of like valley. I'd never even dreamed. I would only seen pictures of like idyllic places like that, and it's just like this river of like like blue waters, and then for a time actually I was just so exhausted. All I could do was like sleep in my kitchen, cook myself meals and sleep, and just like watch Netflix. I was just like Netflixing on my couch for like days on end, just to sort of like recover from all the noise and everything that I'd been through. And I feel like I really appreciated that, and that really helped me get a lot of perspective. And also on that visit, I think this is crucial, I guess, for me, someone who comes from a place like Sri Lanka, is that, I mean, you need to be somewhere like in Europe, for example, to experience good art, right? So I have learned so much simply by sort of like visiting places like Art Basel or other kinds of like shows, just by sort of like walking and seeing and like experiencing installations by great artists from around the world. And I feel like that's such a crucial thing. Every time I've been lucky enough to leave the country, that has been one of the biggest things that have sort of helped me learn and grow. But yeah, I mean, I feel like it can sometimes be a very confusing kind of like experience and a space to be as well when you're out there and you're given a very broad sort of like framework of this thing called a residency, and you have to figure out what that means. Yeah.
I just
Miranda, are you? Go ahead. Yeah,
I just want to add something to that. That was interesting. I think of like when we go to this place, and when I said like the update of the avatar, I guess it's like for everything that you said, also to see yourself somewhere else. And then it's not so much that you update the avatars, but that you realize that the avatar was updated also somehow. Then you can have the necessary contrast to see yourself in retrospect and on another light, and then you find bits of yourself. But one thing that I'm really thankful for this type of experience is learning to trust the subconscious and this energy. Thinking of also what Manley was talking in the beginning, when like, okay, I don't make the work, the work's coming through, and I really feel like this as well. Like there's like a channeling, the work makes itself. I just like, woo, like give it way. And when we allow ourselves to do like you just did but all of like, and also when I was in Basel, it's just like, okay, following what the body needed. It's so beautiful to see like how the work still happens, because this is what hit me, because like Are You the Media Player owner was born at Atelier Mondial, because I was needing to isolate and being silenced, but I was also dying to like clubs. So first it was a club. First I made a club called Lockdown Club. Then I made the Dump Club where people could destroy and make things. Then I had mega media players inside, like blasting Boiler Room, and I was like techno flying around with a flying pen and shit. And I thought I was procrastinating. But then and then I realized that Are You the Media Player owner was actually, wait, no, this is a thing. And it's just always magical to me when you think you're not making work, and then it's exactly that moment when you're not rationalizing, going, this is the piece, that later on in retrospect your chin just dropped and you're like, that wanted to be talked about and wanted to exist. I'll shut up now because I've been doing a lot of talking. So.
Well, I would just no, that's great, actually, and I really this image of avatars also kind of connects to what we were trying to talk about with the whole exhibition. So it works unintentionally. Like I said, I can't take any credit for that at all. It's great that it just sort of comes together. Miranda, are you still with us? Wanted to kind of bring you into our. You're still here?
Yeah.
I don't know if you had a different take on this. Of course, everybody's also gone through quite different residency experiences, especially in this group and this year. But I didn't know if you wanted to respond to that at all too.
Yeah, sure. I was really resonating what Halik was talking about, the first residency, and I guess this residency that I'm talking about has been the only long-term residency I've been on, I guess. And so I'm not so well versed in the idiosyncrasies, but
you're not bouncing from residency. You're not fully immersed in residency culture, then, let's say.
No, I mean, I would love to be. This sounds great.
It sounds nice, yeah.
Where do I sign up? Yeah, so it's really eye-opening to hear Sibyl's expanded wisdom about this, and yeah, how I can recognize things in my own situation, definitely this one piece. But I guess also to answer the question in the chat a bit more, and I'd be really interested to hear from this particular group of artists who are particularly not from Europe, but for me, I studied art, and I guess this kind of contemporary whatever, fashion stuff, and most at the bottom of Africa, and most of my education was centered around Central Europe. And so for me, going to Switzerland was a big, it was, I guess, my second international gig or whatever. And I was like, holy shit, I'm going to the center of what is contemporary or modern art, this is it, right? This is super cool and exciting. Wow, I made it. And then kind of getting there and being oh, this is it, this is Europe. And slowly being very uncomfortable. I'm not proud to say this, that this was an aspiration of and sort of, but through this process of this residency, kind of realizing that there's why am I aspiring to these very Central European artistic ideals? Yeah, and what is my position in my country, as well as a South African of settler descent as well, and as an artist working here, what space can I take up? What should I be doing here? Should I be filling up white cubes with more, I don't know, planks leaning against walls? No, I don't feel comfortable doing that. That's not okay. And so yeah, I'd be really interested to hear about other the rest of you guys and your sort of experiences of your education and artistic education and process, and ending up in Switzerland, which is the nicest place ever.
Moscow is also quite nice. I mean, actually, the funny thing is we can say a lot of the things that we're saying about Europe, for all the kind of exoticism that people have about Russia, you certainly could easily say about Moscow and St. Petersburg as well. So, but I don't know, other people want to relate to these different locations in Switzerland, and I don't know, maybe tell us about your installation of lots of planks against walls. Planks against walls.
No, I mean, I never did that. It's just I don't know, contemporaryartdaily.com or whatever.
I have a very funny image of this in my mind. That's why I said that. No, I think I understand.
Yeah, maybe it was maybe that was a bad example, but
but the question for everybody else is how they relate to kind of where they're situated as it relates to sort of Central Europe and Switzerland, or what is that the question to ask everybody else? I mumble. I thought I was going to paraphrase the question you just asked, and I screwed it up. So, but what was it that you wanted to ask everybody?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if anyone else had this or like grew up or through your artistic educational process, like formal or informal, about this kind of aspiration towards Central Europe because of the modernist and contemporary canon, which is of course very well documented and canonized?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like in a certain way, I feel like the packet was also a response to that, because I feel every one of us in the packet are working artists and we engage with the art world in various different ways. But I think something that we all kind of like strongly felt was that to engage with the art world as artists from the global south, from South Asia, there is a particular sort of like, first of all, there's a particular way that we are sort of like framed within these discourses, and then this sort of like comes back to us, and there is a sense of needing to frame ourselves and our work in a certain way, to fit sort of like the paradigms of the spaces that we have access to, if I may put it like that. So I feel like while sort of like we engage with the art world as it is in that context and try in various different ways to subvert it if we can, the packet was essentially formed as a space that could sit outside of that, a space where we could sort of like speak more hyperlocally and speak languages that maybe are more internal, and ask questions that that we might ask them ourselves, as opposed to questions like we said that we essentially would want to ask others to, or speak in a more universal language. Yeah, so definitely that has been, I think it's a sort of a very significant thing to encounter, because there is a sense that the European ideal of how art should be, it tends to sort of like post itself as almost like a universal idea of art itself, and that can be quite daunting, because you don't necessarily have the cultural background or the educational background to kind of understand why that should be. Yeah, so definitely, I sort of like relate you on that for sure. Yeah.
Sybil, you wanted to join?
Yeah, hearing Abdul speak makes me think that maybe this is why I just threw myself to like mediums that were not recognized as art at the time. I've always been like I literally threw myself on internet, and like I've been working, when I started working with social media as part of my art practice, I had to be calling it that. And even when I was in music and I was using performance art and like using an album as an opener for a series of installations and performances, I was always having to carve this and call it the name, like saying like do a Duchamp, get the beat there and stick it in the white cube. Here's my flyer. Yes, it's a flyer. That's what the show is. Like, because of coming from South America, and I've experienced this in so many levels, not just in fine art, but in music as well. Like being from São Paulo, being assigned female at birth, being out there in the world as a cis woman for a while, coming out non-binary, but still, like, for example, there's ways that there's this encounter of gazes. So there's like how Europe and let's say the global north wants to see you. And as long as you play according to their gaze, if you auto-exoticize, you do just fine. So if you're making music, like for example, what was my frustration in music that collaborated hugely for me to being like, fuck this. So I'm working with beat cycles that are, polyrhythmic, but I'm using, electronic instruments for them, and I'm going conceptual on the piece, whatever. However, though, my passport is from Brazil. I've got my curly hair, and at the time, like, oh, sensual Brazilian girl singing. It was never taken serious for what it was sound-wise. I mean, I'm gonna give it some credit. It was critically, but I was never at the main festival. I was in the world music side stage, whatever. Like, I would never forget, once I was on stage and then I was about to play and some people walked in ready to rehearse salsa, and then we started playing and they were really confused at this festival. So that kind of stuff. And it was also kind of what prompted me to develop like Sonia Kalekalon, which is this alter ego that I have that is hyper femme, that lives on what's left of planet Earth. And her first inhabitation was the third album that I released, where I'm performing this hyper femininity. And I'm like, do you want tropical? Do you want tropical? do you want exotic? I'm gonna give you the exotic. And I went punk with it. And it's interesting because what happened, it was punk and it was in the energy, but because it was still somewhat in the constraints of that European gay and global north gaze to a South American. Oh, they could relate it to Tropicalia. So that was then going successful. And then the other thing then in parallel to fine art, and let's say when you are making work, if you were born in Brazil, or like I see like friends are like Korean, Canadian, Korean American, or, you know, if you're not 100% white as white, like not white passing, I mean, white, pink, white, you're kind of supposed to make work that talks of the imaginary that the global north has of your country, period, or you're not really taken in. And so, and I had my frictions with this, whilst I was in like a blue chip gallery for 4 years, and like it was the strangest time because especially for the commercial art world, I think that really reigns. When you're talking about institutional, maybe there you can kind of swing it more, and I think this is also probably why I went more that way in technology, because I guess in parallel to what I was saying about the body as an avatar interface, where suddenly the body is just like a biocomputer and no longer than genitals or the skin color or something are that's supposed to mean so much to the user, like the user is that which is animating the body, right? So you interact more with technology and social media and things that are happening now, and you really keep on pushing the Duchamp, like the ready-made vibe, and like this is what it is, and you declare what the art is. I found an escape, and I see that in common with what you're doing with the packet, like what you're doing with the store, like what you do with the Instagram. There are loads of similarities to what I've been doing as a strategy as well. Like now I'm waiting to, now I do all these like funny TikToks to nurture, but also to attract, and then like land heavy activism in between. But I don't know, I'm again speaking for too long, but I find like this was a strategy that I found, you know, to come out of being the South American that's supposed to make neo-concrete sculptures that are gray with a red line, or hypertropical colorful thing, or super dry video of cars going in a circle. But, you know, like just to be an artist, like how can, you know, it's so, I find it like so, it's my whole life I just found it so frustrating, this thing of like of being from the global south, and whatever it is that you do, it's somebody that's like white as white, not white passing, white from global north, they're doing the same. The way that work is seen is very different, and it doesn't matter where you've been, you know. It's and I find, just sorry, I'm going to extend myself a little bit just to say what I see, even in the subconscious of making work. Like my partner is Swedish. I have a bunch of Scandies around me, and I find it really interesting that I see like Brazilian artists, especially people working more formally, working, you know, sculpture, painting and stuff, like for a long time, trying so hard to like, even I did this, like it just, there is like the need to get it very concise and very formally resolute. And I suppose it's because outside is a mess if you are local, but if you are non-local, I think there's a thing of embodying the gaze of what you're supposed to look like, whatever. Meanwhile, top of privilege, whitest of whites, up in the north, money for arts, everything works, welfare. Explode a TV with glitter and on a synth, not a problem. Like there isn't, I don't see a conflict. There is and there isn't a fear of being seen as a savage, as an uneducated, as in, you know, because the Brazilian doing that, it could be seen as, oh, that's just carnival. And then so you have to do a lot of intellectualization behind and back it up, be able to talk about critically of the thing. Like there is so much. Anyways, I'm doing a total like therapy moment on the couch here. But this is what I have to offer from these questions and life experience and stuff that literally I have been really frustrated with, and that as I just inhabited the practice using, you know, digital ready-made, going outside of the box. I guess it's non-binary as well, you know, being genre non-conforming with my practice. I created myself a somewhat of a safer or freer space where suddenly I feel like I am for the first time being seen as just an artist, as just a person, not as the Brazilian, not as the whatever, not as the femme, not as the, no, maybe sometimes as the non-binary still, but just like somewhat a feeling of, you know, what say a mediocre white male, cis male artist from the global north would be. Like,
I saw Banley's avatar Simpson's hand pop up, so maybe there's something you want to add to that.
Yeah, yeah, it just reminded me about there's a story like happened last year when I came to Geneva again because I met my classmate. He is a good friend of mine, and I was talking about my question and the things I faced in China or in my life, and I think he was a little bit rude, and he said, it's just your personal problem. You need to find your father in the art history. He means, and then he said, yeah, the center is in here, so you have to be a child of whatever. But at that time, I think I just like another part of my humanity, you know. I'm still a child. So I think I'm competitive. So I think why I want to come here, because I can do wrong in here. That's because people don't care about you because you came from 10 kilometers far from Switzerland. So everything I've been doing here, I think they accept that. So yes, so I don't think, also I know what I want in here, and I think I can see myself really clear because I don't need to follow anything. I can just do the things I trust, I believe. I think that's it. So yeah, that's what just remind me that, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I like I said, I feel really grateful to all of you because back to Anastasia's original question of why do you kind of go out of where you're from to seek people out, you know, or to seek experiences out. People like you are usually the reason that I do that. People like our colleagues at MoMA and Moscow, and my colleagues in Russia, and I think everybody here on this panel. I feel really lucky to be able to kind of reach out to places that are far away from where I came from, and find people who are doing work that really excites me and is inspiring. You know, because sometimes you don't find people around where you're from that you can relate to, and then sometimes you kind of feel isolated, even in a city like Berlin, and sort of without, uninspired in some way. And then I look and see the stuff that all of you are doing, and it's like a Sunday brunch for the brain and spirit again. Like, I really believe in the work that all of you are doing. I wanted to actually ask, maybe as a way of closing too, to ask Anna coming from Russia, of course, then you've come so far from the global north that you overshot some of the rest of the global north, but or kind of if you have any feeling of how that resonates, working as an artist in Russia. What's in a scene that's also very, very formalistic, right? In a lot of the ways that the media art scene talks about what you do. If Anna's still there.
Yeah. Well, because I'm really dealing with media art, as you know, and it is quite hard to be a media artist in Russia, I would say, and because and that's why I would say that kind of the events which we have just started to have, I would say, only recently, and in my opinion, this EMA Expo 2021, which is happening now in MoMA, it's something which we are not that used to be happening in MoMA exactly. And in truth, I would say that speaking only about the infrastructure which we have for being a media artist in Russia. We really are lacking that kind of, really built on infrastructure, but still also thinking about the residencies and the network of the residents. I would say that if to talk about residencies, I would say that in Russia we have quite some nice residencies, and also I know that together with Helvetia there are some partner programs with the residencies in Russia, partnered with Helvetia program in Switzerland. So I don't know whether I answered your question directly, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it sounds like and for that reason, yeah, I'm really excited by what all of you are doing to kind of redefine what's happening in all of these places where you're living, where these events are happening, and also in the metaverse somehow. Well, are there any other questions for anybody to ask each other, or questions from the audience before we kind of call it an afternoon? Or we could hear from that. We didn't get to hear from the PIS synthesizer. I still want to, if you want to serenade us on the way out, probably doesn't sound very good through Zoom anyway.
Yeah, PIS synthesizers we want to hear.
Please.
Okay. So this is also using the Swiss etching DIY PCB etching technology. I just made like a very simple voltage to frequency oscillator, and then just plug that straight into my PIS batteries. And so you can also see what my bathroom looks like right now. Yeah, and just trying to get something tangible. Like all of these experiments I've seen with these biofuel cells, they're all just readings on multimeters, and it's actually very hard, even though they have like some voltage, but like not much current. So that's, oh wait, I need to share my sound. Classic. It's like super high-tech PCB.
So the
yeah, go. We can.
I don't know if we'll be able to hear over top of it, but so we're actually hearing that this is powering the synthesizer. Is it also powering the amplification, or do you have separate power for the
yeah, so it's externally amplified. Yeah, no, not there yet. In the future, but so this is both powering the synthesizer and like just the manifestation of the power.
Yeah, what is generating the tones? Like, is it like what data is doing what?
It's just literally like the electricity that is coming out of these batteries is being like the signal
raw analog PIS oscillator,
oh! Basically. And this is a coconut battery. And yeah, anyway, this is thing, and later I try and plug my phone in. More sound.
I am living for this.